So there's a lot of people doing best and worst draft, winners and losers, what grade do you have, and all that's boring to me, I'm not gonna lie. So I decided we're gonna put our own little twist on it, and we are going to draft the draft. We're gonna do 5 rounds. Me and Dave are gonna go back and forth, round 1 to round 5, picking which draft class that we would pick if we had the first overall pick of the entire class of each and every one of these teams. Make sense? Awesome. And because my mother raised a gentleman, I'm going to give my man Dave the first overall pick. Go for it, sir.
Well, I tell you what, I'm taking my bias out of here because the Ravens had one of the best drafts, but the team that I came back to after watching it that I really liked their class, and it's going to surprise you. I liked what the Washington Commanders did.
They were on my board. I'm with you.
I'm going to take them one because you addressed the big need. You got a quarterback. Now, I may have gone Drake May over Caleb over Jaden Daniels, but that's how I had him ranked. But you get your quarterback, and then I think what they did on night 2, and then Jazon Newton, the D tackle from Illinois, Mike Sanderstill, who you and I were on my show with Ian Cummings of Pro Football Network, who's coming back on our pod, and I'm sure is going to tell me how great of a pick that was. And then you get Ben Sinnott, a really solid, dependable tight end, Brandon Coleman, Luke McCaffrey. I really like what Dan Quinn and Adam Peters, not just in this draft, but really in the whole offseason. If you look at the moves they made, they're not flashy moves, but they are fixing the culture of that team. And I even think you look at draft night, starting to fix the culture of Washington. That was probably my favorite draft class.
I'm with you. They were definitely in the top 5 on my board. And I've given Adam Peters a bunch of grief just because I hate when the media darling GM comes and every single move they make, all the draft analysts who get their information from that person are like, oh, yeah, this is fantastic. But I got to give them credit, man. They killed this draft. They got 2 first-round talents. Jazon Newton, if he was not injured through this draft prospect, would have been a top 15 pick. Maybe not in this actual iteration of it because first, 14 picks were offensive players, but still. I thought he was one of my favorite defensive players in this draft. And then you get Sandro from Michigan. You get a nice tight end in Sinnott. And then it's just value pick on top of value pick on top of value pick. And you're just like, all right, man, you can't knock it. Washington did a hell of a job in this draft. And of course, Jaden Daniels. I was always saying it depends on your need and your style of offense. Who'd you go between Jaden and Drake? I thought the Patriots had a greater need for Drake May, and I thought Washington had a greater need for Jaden Daniels. Lo and behold, that's how it worked out. So, hey, you can't be mad at it. My first overall pick, that goddamn Howie Roseman, man, he did it again. he did it again. I don't know how the Philadelphia Eagles keep coming out of here with these incredible drafts, but he did it again. He had 2 of the best 3 corners in this draft with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and then follows it up with a nice little sleeper edge of Jackson Hunt. Hope I pronounced that correctly, from Houston Christensen to edge. Got Anar Smith from Texas A&M, undersized run after catch receiver. Johnny Wilson from Florida State, who's like 6'12" at receiver, 240, who might be a tight end receiver hybrid we haven't seen since Shannon Sharp. And they got Jeremiah Trotter's son. Like somehow, some way, Howie Roseman ends up just pulling this out in the end. Whether the draft capital improves or doesn't improve, he just does it. I don't know how he does it. Maybe he's a wizard. Maybe he has voodoo on the rest of the league. But he's clearly figured something out the rest of the league hasn't.
Don't forget, by the way, Will Shipley, the Clemson running back, who felt like he's been at Clemson forever. That just sort of fits what Philadelphia wants to do. I'm kind of with you. There are a couple other teams that sort of had the Eagles' luck that I kind of like their draft of getting 2 really top-tier corners. But you can't go wrong with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. And it's always good to see teams, and it'll be sort of the theme of the teams that I pick up. You know what your needs are. You're able to address them quickly. And then it's just best player available after that.
I like it. And also, there was an incredible tweet from, I got to give my man some credit. My man AJ Breezy on Twitter who said Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean coming to save Philly, and it's a picture of Woody Harrelson and and Wesley Snipes from White Man Can't Jump. And it is incredible. I've been laughing at it all weekend long. But that is one hell of a pairing, and now they don't have to worry about whether Cooper DeJean is a corner, slot, or safety. They could put him everywhere because the Eagles have a need everywhere. And I just love those two picks, man. I just love those two picks.
I do think they're real fast. I think that's why DeJean fell, is because I think people were kind of stuck on where he plays at the next level.
I wonder why.
I
wonder why, Dave.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to say, but I also look at his skill set and consider, okay, he played it in the Big Ten. Yeah, he profiled at as a corner at Iowa, but probably profiles sort of like the Kyle Hamilton type a little bit at the next level of a guy that you can line him up in the slot. Like, he's your matchup guy. I don't think you put him out on an island like you will Quinyon Mitchell.
And the fact they have a guy to do both, and I think, well, last DeJean point before we get to your pick, I think DeJean falling is a lot of defensive coordinators telling on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we have this versatile defensive piece that we don't know what to do with because we're just not creative enough. You just compared him to Kyle Hamilton, who was an all-pro in his second year because the Ravens figured it out. We don't know safety, linebacker, corner. We'll put him where we need to put him because he's good at football. Put him somewhere. And I think that's what the Eagles are going to do with Cooper.
Well, and my second team is going to be the Ravens. I think they had a great draft. But to the point of like Cooper DeJean, that's why the Ravens went out and got Nate Wiggins, the corner out of Clemson, tall, lanky corner. That, like, the Ravens draft to me was just, you understand what your team is, you understand what you do. So you go out, you get Nate Wiggins. I know the weight is a little bit of a concern, but I think that's a great value pick at 30. Rose Garden, which everybody forgets about, and that's the key point. He was a left tackle, essentially, at Washington because Penix was a right-hander. Mm-hmm. Never gave up a sack. Adiza Isaac, I watched the highlights of him. Plays like a Raven. Physical. I don't know about you. I love Tez Walker to the Raven.
Sorry to cut you off. I love that the Ravens have a type, and they always fill that type every single draft. Like, they so clearly have a type of player that they prefer. Nate Wiggins is a little out of it because he's a little light in the hind parts, but I think once he fills out, and becomes a more willing tackler, he's going to be more of that play like a Raven archetypal player.
Tez Walker, big size receiver. Something that really, when you look at the Ravens, they haven't had is a big, tall, sort of physical receiver, big play capability. But really, my two favorite picks they had, Kev, TJ Tampa out of Iowa State. We talked about Philadelphia getting two really top-tier talents. Mm-hmm. The Ravens get one, and they got one all the way in the fourth round.
Mel Kiper had him mocked going in, like, the first round to the Niners at one point.
Yeah, he, like, really good, big physical corner, which, again, fits that play like a Raven mold. And everybody has to remember now, the Ravens are going to play more man coverage, I think, under Zach Orr, the new defensive coordinator, than they did with Mike McDonald, because he wants to be more aggressive and more physical. But I really like Rasheen Ali, the running back out of Marshall. Like, you talk about a guy that whenever the time comes that Derrick Henry moves on, you've got a guy to pair with Keaton Mitchell. And the Ravens just have the succession plan already in place. I love what the Ravens did. And that's not even a phantom. That's just looking at it objectively at what they were able to do.
No, it's front offices in the NFL that we expect to do well are doing well. And I don't think it's outside of the Commanders, like, I don't think it's a coincidence who these top four are going to be. Let me get to my pick. The Kansas City Chiefs, every pick they made just pissed me off because I was like, of course they got that player. I'm like, when they traded up to get Xavier Worthy, I threw my remote across the room. I was like, are you serious? They get they trade Tyreek Hill, win 2 Super Bowls, and now they get their Tyreek Hill replacement. And then they get Kingsley. I can't pronounce Kingsley's last name to save my life. The tackle from BYU.
Suamatia.
Thank you. From BYU. They get another tight end in the 4th round. because the tight end depth at this draft was like sneaky good. Pick up a safety, pick up a corner, pick up another guard, and they just fill it out. And it's so annoying because you're just looking at it like, wow, again, they just knock it out and build upon another team somehow, some way that has the best quarterback in football. And now we give him more things to add to his greatness. It's annoying. It's just annoying.
You know, I wasn't a big fan of the Xavier Worthy pick.
Really?
I I think you got to try to round out your receiver room a little bit. I mean, I know that Marquise Hollywood Brown's on a 1-year deal. I get all that. But it feels like now you just have a receiver room of just go route guys, if that makes sense.
I see what you're saying.
And I kind of I kind of thought maybe, okay, if you're trading back in the first round, like the guy I kept when I saw Kansas City trade up, my first thought was, oh man, they're going to get Xavier Leggett, the receiver out of South Carolina.
That's what I thought at first too.
And like, to me, that would have been the slam dunk. Like, okay, Kansas City, great, did it again. But I'm looking at like Xavier Worthy's 5'11", Marquise Brown's 5'9". Like, you've got one type of receiver in your receiver room, guys that get vertical on you. And yeah, I know it's game-changing speed, and I know they've had success with it in the past, but everybody else in the AFC is getting big physical corners and DBs. Like, kind of think they're telling you, you're not going to run by us. You're going to have big body guys that can go over the middle, and it can't just be Travis Kelce. So I wasn't as much of a fan of the Xavier Worthy pick, I think, as everybody else in America was.
Counterpoint before we get to your third pick. It's kind of back to what we just said about the Ravens of, oh, you have a type. Because that's a type of offense that Andy Reid wants to run in the, what are we on, version 3.0 now of the Mahomes era Chiefs? Where it's like, all right, we have a quarterback who can throw the ball over the moon, but because everyone kind of adjusted in playing the two highs and all the four shells and all these defenses y'all have been hearing all the nerds talk about for the past couple years. Great. We're either going to put all this speed on the field, so we're going to force you to play with all that space, and then we got these guys that can run under that'll be able to make you miss with all the space they got. Or if you decide to come up, boom, right over your head. And these guys can actually catch. So we might be with a little better luck this year. That's just the way I looked at it, but I do see your point, though. Would have been nice to have a nice little change-up picture there. But hopefully Jared Wiley from TCU, before the end of the season, will be able to develop into that, because we don't know how many years Travis Kelce has left, if we're going to be realistic. But hey.
So my number 3, I've got 4 teams I'm trying to like decipher here for the last 3 picks. I'm hoping you pick one of them and make my life easier. So I'm going to go the New Orleans Saints.
Really? Not on my board.
I think Talise Fuaga. Like, the Saints had to fix the offensive line.
Yes.
They get 2 tackles in one of the deepest draft classes. I think steal in terms of the cornerback room is Kool-Aid McKinstry going to them in the second round. And now you have Kool-Aid McKinstry on one side, Pearson Adabo on the other, Marshawn Lattimore. Like, that's a really good 3-corner set. I like the Spencer Rattler pick. I really do. In terms of a guy that, hey, we've got Derek Carr. Carr's going to be at the end of his contract here within the next year. Maybe a kind of a developmental guy that's going to have some weapons. Don't sleep on this guy either. Bub Means. Receiver out of
A plus name.
Huge A+ name. But 6'1", 212. He is a big play threat to pair with Chris Olave. I'm blanking on the name. Rashid Shaheed.
Yes.
Like, fits the mold, I think, of what Dennis Allen really wants to do. I would have liked to see him, but they only had 2 picks in the first 2 days. Be able to get maybe another alignment early, but I think they had a really good draft class in terms of hit the needs, be able to get some big play guys to fill out your offense.
Those first 4 picks are just incredible value too. Like, Talise Fuaga, I feel like most mocks had him going there, but there were some people that was like, he could possibly be the best tackle in this draft. And we'll get to the person who might be the best tackle in the draft eventually. But with them getting him, he brings a level of nastiness that, quite honestly, the Saints offensive line hasn't had in years that they desperately need. And also, if you can't trade Derek Carr yet, you might as well protect him until you could bring up his eventual usurper in Spencer Rattler. Quick aside about Spencer Rattler, because Caleb Williams was on the Pivot podcast and was talking about how upset he was that he couldn't get Spencer Rattler out of there in the spring training and only got him out of there during the season. Imagine going from being a projected top 5 pick, then this dude with painted nails comes in, knocks you out the starting lineup, and now you're a round 5 pick. I know Spencer Rattler has Caleb Williams pictures on a dartboard somewhere in this room and is pissed every single day. So whatever he gets on the field, I think he will be a more motivated player.
Yeah, perfect guy to build your succession plan with, I think, if you're the Saints, because he's got the biggest arm, the biggest talent, without a doubt.
With my 3rd round pick, I've been going through a lot of different possibilities here. I bought him up. Let's just go to it. Los Angeles Chargers. Let's bring them on the board. Jim Harbaugh is my spirit animal. Because after the first round, they said they were asking him, they were like, look, I know all y'all are going to ask me about these offensive weapons, but in my world, offensive linemen are weapons. And I was like, you goddamn right, Jim. I was like, you tell him, Jim. I love every second of it. He is a man of morals and principles, and he is bringing a brand of smash mouth football that I think really could have an effect on the league because these teams aren't really seeing it no more. All those 220-pound linebackers y'all got because y'all wanted to be able to cover in space. All right, cool. Wait till 6'9", 320 Joe Alt come to the second level on y'all. All of a sudden, being that light in the cheeks ain't going to be so enticing. And then the next day, they grab Ladd McConkey, top 5 in the second round, bring in the linebacker from Michigan, Junior Colson, who if anyone knows how great he is, it would be Jim Harbaugh. Get Brendan Rice in the 7th round, who I thought would go much higher, and I think his best football is clearly ahead of him. And it's just a beautiful way they were able to pull this draft together. I really like the Chargers draft.
Yeah, so did I. I give Jim Harbaugh credit for not caving and saying we need a receiver early, because I think at the end of the day, part of the problem with Justin Herbert is you're not protecting Justin Herbert. It doesn't matter who he's throwing to if he doesn't have time. I like that draft a lot. My number 4, Kev, I really like what Arizona did.
Oh, yeah.
Arizona getting Marvin Harrison, going back into the first round, getting Darius Robinson, Max Melton. I mean, hit your 3 big needs early. I love that approach when you got your guys and you just go get them. I really like the Trey Benson pick a lot out of Florida State. I think he fits kind of what Jonathan Gannon and the Cardinals were starting to establish last year with James Conner, which is, hey, we're going to play a little smash mouth football. The defense needed work, and you can see that by how they drafted a lot of defensive guys. They didn't take another receiver till the 6th round. They took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, 7 of their draft picks are defense. And that's a team understanding we've got to just fill the roster out. We have a lot of deficiencies. We need to fill it out. I love what Arizona did. I just love what they did.
You can argue they got the best player in the draft at 4.
Yes, without a doubt.
Like Marvin Harrison is arguably the best player in this draft, and it will be a surprise to nobody if he ends up being the best player when we look back at it. Obviously, they addressed the defense, and they had all these picks, and I never understood why people were saying they should trade back. I was like, they have 11 picks, and they need bodies. That roster is depleted. So they did exactly what they needed to do, and they kept acquiring people. All right, so the draft was held in Detroit. So I feel like I'm like almost obligated for my 4th round pick to be the Detroit Lions. But on top of that, I really love the way the Lions front office has come in these past couple of years and changed the culture. I got this tweet, I think it was from NFL Research. The Lions have drafted 4 Pro Bowlers in the first round of the last 5 drafts, the most in the NFL. They have drafted 7 Pro Bowlers in any round over the last 5 drafts. The only team that has drafted more is the Cowboys with 8. And I'm just sitting there, you look at their first 2 picks, Terry Arnold and Ennis Reckerstraw Jr., they scream Lions football. They scream Dan Campbell bite kneecap all football. And I love teams that get players that fill their need. Even the safety last name Vaki from Utah, who they got in the 4th round. They have a type. They go after their type of player. Would I have loved for them to get an edge rusher at some point in this draft? Sure. But everybody can't be perfect. So that's why I got to go with the Lions with my round 4 pick.
Oh, my round 5. I've gone back and forth a little bit on it. You did take one of the teams. You took the Lions off the board for me, which I appreciate. Am I allowed to give an honorable mention here? Because I don't think you're thinking the team I'm thinking of.
Yes,
Pittsburgh's my number 5.
I like it.
Great value type of draft. Completely redoing the offensive line, getting guys that just fit AFC North football. Talked a little bit about that with the Ravens, where you get their tackle from Washington, which is just bully ball football type of kid. That's what the Steelers did. The first 2 picks, Troy Fontenot out of Washington, who they list him as a guard on ESPN, probably going to be a tackle early, but a right side tackle. Zach Frazier, center out of West Virginia. The Roman Wilson pick.
Such a great pick. Such a great pick.
Such a Steeler pick, though.
Yes.
Because complements, that's my whole thing. Does it complement what you already have? That's how I look at drafts and I look at teams and I say, do they complement what they already have? Peyton Wilson played like a Steeler at NC State. And then I like Mason McCormick, the guard out of South Dakota State. So they're easily my number 5 because I think they hit it out of the park. But my sleeper honorable mention team, Kev, this might shock you.
Go for it.
Is the New York Giants.
Really?
Because.
Go for it.
I don't think you've been fair to Daniel Jones if you look at what he's had around him.
Oh, here we go.
Paid him the money. You paid him money.
Here we go.
You paid him money. The receiving position's been sort of up in the air the last couple of years. So I like it. You don't panic and say we need to take a quarterback. I like getting Malik Neighbors. I think if you're going to say, hey, Daniel Jones is our guy, which is what they basically said this weekend, get Malik Neighbors. And then I like the picks they made on the defensive side. Tyler Nubin, the safety out of Minnesota, plays a lot like the guy they let go to Green Bay.
Yes.
Hate to break it to you. So perfect fit. Andrew Phillips was a guy, probably a round 2 pick that slid to the 3rd round. I like that. Theo Johnson, sort of a big frame tight end, 6'6", 259. With all the questions about Darren Waller, I think that's a good move for them. I liked what the Giants did. But they're an honorable mention because it wasn't a complete draft class because they had such few picks. But I like what they did there.
What's funny is my 5th round pick, and I'll get there in a second, is a team that only made 5 draft picks. But I agree with all your Giants points, except for that we've been too hard on Daniel Jones' point. That's the one point I disagree with because I feel like we haven't been hard enough. So last pick of my draft, the team that had the number 1 overall pick and got the best quarterback prospect in a generation and then got him one of the best receivers in the draft, the Chicago Bears. Like, they have put Caleb Williams in the best situation a 1st round quarterback, a number 1 overall pick quarterback, has ever been in. It's like, we got you Keenan Allen. We got you Keenan Allen 2.0 and Roma Dunze. We got DJ Moore. We got offensive linemen. They got my man from Yale, Kieran Abadjie, to be their tackle. They even picked up a punter and an edge rusher for their troubles. Austin Booker was incredible value in the 5th round. And then my honorable mention, the Miami Dolphins. They didn't go, we need speed. Everybody must be fast. They say, you know what? Let's get Chop Robinson, athletic defensive end, because we have no depth on our edge rushers right now. Let's get Patrick Paul. Let's bring in some old linemen. Then they got Jalen Wright. And they got my best sleeper pick from this draft. I was going to give whoever picked up this guy, they were going to end up on my board some way, somehow. Muhammad Kamara, the edge rusher from Colorado State. He's about 6'1", 6 foot even, but incredibly productive. Malik Washington, receiver, undersized receiver, really productive, set all type of reception records. I love the Miami Dolphins draft, but just not enough to make the top 5. And that concludes our 5, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much to Dave Steinwarner for joining us on the show. Appreciate you, sir. Like I said, you can catch him on the Opening Kickoff podcast every single Wednesday, wherever fine podcasts are acquired.
Thank you, buddy, for having me on.
Appreciate it. Until next week, guys, thank you for listening.